Call the member for Blacktown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support the Government Work Health and Safety Amendment Industrial Relations Manslaughter Bill 2024 and thank Minister Sophie Costas and her staff for their hard work and commitment in making this bill happen and become reality, hopefully to support the House. There is no such thing as a workplace accident. They are workplace incidences and they are all preventable. As the Minister stated in her opening remark in the second reading speech, the families who have lost loved ones in New South Wales at work are the ones who have been given a life sentence. This bill is aimed at rectifying the injustice. This bill continues the Labor Party's legacy of supporting working people's right to a safe workplace, unquote. Before coming to this place, I proudly represented members of the Australian Workers' Union. Apart from wages, conditions, consultation and disputes, were our bread and butter issues. The two saddest moments in my career at the AWU were undertaking workplace death incident investigations on what happened at the workplace and what immediately needed to be done so that the tragedies do not reoccur at the same workplace. Sitting in on hearings, counselling and consoling workmates, families and friends of the deceased and attending funerals. Unfortunately, many union officials have had to undertake these difficult and stressful tasks. Hence why the introduction of this industrial manslaughter bill is so important. When I first started at the AWU, roughly about 2004, the first workplace death that I had to assist the union and the family and work colleagues was the death of a construction worker on the Cross City Tunnel. The experienced AWU construction official was Kevin Brown, assisting the family directly and the work colleagues on the site, and he had to deal with the tragic death of Ronald Shores, died on the 29th of July 2004. When a section of roof collapsed on him while he was working on a ventilation tunnel. The New South Wales coroner found 3 years after the incident. So these investigations and ongoing doesn't happen overnight. 3 years the family had to deal with the uncertainty of what happened at the time. That the builders, the New South Wales Coroner Court found 3 years later that the builders should have done more to protect a worker who was killed in a rockfall as Mr. Shores was drilling a hole under an unsupported roof. May I just say that again? Mr. Shores, a resident of Penrith at the time, working in the Cross City Tunnel construction project, was drilling a hole underground in an unsupported roof. What language or world is that not a unpreventable death if the right thing was done? Mr. Norris at the time was a systems manager for Downer Engineering Power, was concerned that Downer's 300 workers were operating in an unsafe and unpredictable conditions. Mr. Norris repeatedly sent warnings about defining safety concerns and breaches to legislation, and as an employer could be prosecuted by work cover. Could be. There were similar concerns about the tunnelling staff, of which Mr. Shores was one of, and although they were not linked to Downer's operations at the time. The importance of these laws introduced place the potential industrial manslaughter investigations directly at the PCBU or the person conducting the business or undertaking. As the Minister stated in her second reading speech, to commit industrial manslaughter, a person must firstly have a health and safety duty and either be the relevant PCBU or an officer of the business or undertaking. Officers of the PCBUs are also required to comply with their duties, including exercising due diligence to ensure that the PCBUs comply with their duties and obligations under the Workplace Health and Safety Act. I assume the PCBU, if there was a potential sentence of imprisonment as a result of industrial manslaughter, would have It demonstrated that they would have done more than just send a few emails expressing that it was an unsafe work practice by being prosecuted by WorkCover under some fine regime. Mr. Shaw's widow, Marlene, said at the time that she is still angry her husband was not provided with a safe working environment. It happens all the time, she said. It's not a real accident, it's preventable. Her lawyer, Stuart Barnett, at the time said she's still seeking closure. This is 3-4 years after the original death and after the New South Wales coroner's inquiry. She still has to realise her compensation claim, and there is still the occupation health and safety prosecution to sit through, so it goes on and on for the family as those around her, her lawyer said. WorkCover New South Wales was at the time prosecuting 5 companies in the Tunnel Consortium for breaches of OH&S. And I hope the Minister will be looking at the times that it takes to do these prosecutions and to follow up and the payments to workers' families after a death has taken place. I was also the union official at Cement Australia out at Kandos, where Colin David Fuller, only 39 at the time, was killed in the workplace when he was crushed between 2 hydraulic ramps while working at a factory on the 13th of September 2009. Cement Australia had breached the Occupational Health and Safety Act by failing to install fixed guarding along the entire length of a feeder on a conveyor system as required under Australian safety standards, and failing to provide adequate supervision and instruction to Mr. Fuller. In the judgment, Commissioner Jay Blackman found that the systems in place at the time of Mr. Fuller's death were comprehensive but defective in a number of respects. Mr. Fuller's mother, Colleen, described a dreadful sense of loss and grief experienced by the family following his death. Justice Anna Blackman expressed her deepest sympathy to the family, but said that in accordance with the law, the victim impact statement could be acknowledged but not taken into account for sentencing. So that'll be a question for the Minister. Does the victim impact statement taken into account when sentencing an industrial manslaughter? While the maximum penalty for the offence was $550,000 at the time, Justice Blackman noted that the significant presence of Cement Australia and donating $30,000 a year to the community program every year resulted in only a fine of about $100,000. You just donate to the local community and you get a discount on the fine. I don't think the two matters should be linked in any way. She said that given the prevalence of the offences linked to the unguarded machinery coming from the courts, general deterrence needed to be considered, but found that Cement Australia was obviously not adversely recorded. It was entitled to a leniency normally extended to first-time offenders. Cement Australia is a major organisation at the time with a $400 million turnover. They should be dealt separately compared to small businesses. They had an entire OH&S team, and the Cement Works, Cement Australia at Kandos at the time, was in operation for over 100 years. And they get a fine for $100,000 because they gave $30,000 for the local community fund. It was ridiculous. Locally in the Blacktown area, Joel Exner, aged 16, suffered fatal injuries on his 3rd day at work when he fell 12.5 metres from a roof of a warehouse under construction at Eastern Creek on the 15th of October 2003. The Industrial Relations Commission found that the roofing contractor whose work practices led to the death of the 16-year-old Joel Exner on the Eastern Creek building site had put the lives of other young employees carrying out roofing work at risk only 3 weeks earlier. I wish to put on the record my appreciation to Rebel Hanlon from the CFMEU, who even today, 21 years after Joel's death, brings together workers including Gary Windred and local council representatives for a memorial service. I wish to also acknowledge, may I ask for an extension of time?
The member seeks an extension of time. Is that granted?
Yes.
Granted.
I wish to thank you to everyone present. I wish to also acknowledge the former AW union leaders like the former New South Wales AW State Secretary Russ Collison, the current State Secretary Tony Callanan, the New South Wales the Australian National Secretary Paul Farrow, all of whom have shown leadership, commitment and drive in improving workplace safety and dealing with recalcitrant employers. I also wish to make a special mention to Dr. Yossi Berger, who passed away a few years ago. Yossi was the AW National Director of Work Health and Safety, and a person who was willing to spend time with union officials, particularly with me, to discuss and facilitate learning. Over the years, we formed a great partnership going out to various sites at golf courses, manufacturing plants, and it was a great supportive help for workers, management and myself, particularly in the investigation of Colin Fuller at Candos. Also at this point want to raise some concerns that we heard earlier today from the member for Harry Griffith, where she spoke about farms and that this bill will go too far, and why are we just applying a Sydney-centric look at the thing. May I just remind her and everyone in this house that agriculture and farming accounts for 1 in every 5 workers' deaths in New South Wales as a result of quad bikes, tractor flipping, animal handling, biosecurity hazards, tree work, noise and electrical work. This is more particular. Yes, it affects manufacturing sites. Yes, it affects transport workers, but more particular, people in the rural area will benefit from the extra protections. The AW also, may I bring to the House's attention, back in 2021, raised issues of unacceptable number of fatal road accidents involving seasonal workers employed on farms across Australia. The then National Secretary Daniel Walton said, "We have a duty to treat our neighbours from the Pacific Islands far better. They come here expecting to receive pay and work in a safe environment and support their families, but instead we are sending workers back home in coffins." I was proud to also, when I was Mayor of Blacktown Council, to initiate the Workers' Memorial Service in Blacktown that has been held annually since 2015. It's a nice location in the Blacktown Showgrounds precinct where there is a boardwalk and a Workers' Memorial Island. Artefacts accumulating there, apart from the natural peaceful ambience of the location, where these events will not grow, but these events would not have grown without the dedicated support of council, unions, including the AW, Unions New South Wales, but most importantly, can I also once again mention the ongoing drive and support led by Rebel Hanlon and the CFMEU leadership and members that mark the day, regardless if it falls on a weekend or a weekday, or it's raining or it's sunny, or whatever the challenges, or COVID, or challenged by COVID. These Memorial Days are an important feature to help family and friends, work colleagues, unionists, employers, politicians to come together to remember those who have unnecessarily died in the workplace, and to make a commitment that we'll do everything we together can to stop the tragic workplace incidents from occurring again. Hopefully this bill will make a difference. It will make people responsible for safety not to leave any issues to doubt, and address every concern as it's raised by workers and the union. Together we can make a difference in saving people's lives. I commend the bill and thank the Minister Sophie Costas for her passionate support. Thank you.